the damage caused by the instantaneous spread of a falsehood sometimes has very immediate consequences. And by the time the court process is engaged to prosecute and bring the perpetrator to trial, the damage would have been done. And sometimes if the perpetrator is located in a different country, it might be impossible to get him, so to speak. So the crux of our views here is that the more practical solution is to target the intermediary, the platform in which the falsehood is promulgated, rather than just focusing on the author of the falsehood, although we definitely agree that the author should be held responsible.
Do you think that extradition laws and laws on mutual legal assistance, are they helpful to extend the reach of national legislation that target the promulgators of DOF?
Definitely those are helpful, but if we really want to stop the problem, I suppose at its source, to prevent it from being disseminated, we would have to get intermediaries to take down that falsehood as soon as possible, or within a practical period of time.
What if the promulgators of DOFs are state actors or persons subject to the traditional notions of sovereign or state immunity? To what extent should national legislation against DOF authors cover such actors? Or to what extent should we continue to respect international law expectations of sovereignty?
I suppose when you talk about state actors, that does illustrate the limits of domestic legislations. We do have to respect their sovereignty, but again, this is where focusing on intermediary liability would offer us a solution. We can't directly prosecute that state party or actor, but what we can do within our shores is to ensure that the intermediary takes down that offending post so that our citizens are not subject to it. And hopefully that minimizes the impact.
You say that the gap in the regulatory tools in our arsenal, the gap is in relation to what you've identified as, in my quote, if I may quote, the chief mischief or the real danger, unquote, of DOFs, which is near instantaneous dissemination and access. So you're not just talking about the content, but you're talking about the virality. Am I right?
That's correct.
And I quote, you say that a lie can travel halfway around the world before the truth can get its shoes on, unquote. That really stuck in my mind as I was putting on my shoes this morning. Perhaps could you expand a bit more on that? You've certainly done a lot of thinking about our regulatory arsenal to deal with speed and virality. Why do you think it is inadequate?
So the damage is done basically by that piece of news being disseminated to people, and the effect it has on consumers of that falsehood. So I think I've also cited the example of the Pizzagate incident. And the point really is that no matter, say, how, by the time you engage the court process, you try to take it down, or you try to go through a fact-checking process, it might have reached the really extreme fringes of society who, like in that case, decide to take up arms and cause a threat to security. For example, showing up to the restaurant armed with a rifle. Right. So the point, I guess, that I've made repeatedly through these submissions is that stopping the spread, the dissemination is a key part of the solution. And that virality, as you've observed, is really the issue facing us today, because I think many witnesses have agreed that falsehoods, deliberate falsehoods, are not a new problem. What the real issue here is the means of it spreading, which is online, as this select committee has recognized.